Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am starting a 4-part video series where I will be upgrading the suspension and wheels on the 2023 VB WRX. The reasons I'll be upgrading the suspension on this car will be for better handling performance and to get the car prepped for lowering for the new wheels. Whilst I won't need the added performance on the road, Australia does have a lot of roundabouts which can put additional load onto the suspension components, especially in high speed applications like this. So today I'll be starting off the series by upgrading the front and rear sway bars as well as the sway bar links. To do this I'll be heading to DIY Garage again, as I'll need the hoists. So come along for the journey and I'll show you the parts. For parts, I have a set of front and rear sways from Whiteline, as well as the heavy duty rear sway links, also from Whiteline. The front links, however, come as part of another kit that will be going on this car very shortly, and that is my coilovers from BC Racing. I'm going to get these all loaded up in the car and head up to DIY Garage, so come along for the journey. Okay, so starting on the back, I've gone through and removed all the tyres. The end link for the rears is in this main control arm with the sway bar link through the back here above the exhaust. I'll focus on this side, show you what's going on, and then I'll do the other side after that. So to undo the actual sway bar, there's 2 bolts on the carrier either side, sway bar, and the sway bar link into the control arm. So let's get to it. The end link from the control arm is only a 14mm bolt on the back. Let's quickly disconnect this end link. That bolt slides right out. That's the stock rear sway bar already out of the car. Okay, comparing the stock against the Whiteline, you can see that the Whiteline one is significantly thicker. It also has 3 adjustment points for soft, medium and hard. We're going to go for the middle one for medium for the moment, and I can adjust it as required later. This also has pre-installed stops, and we will install the additional bushings that should have been in the container just then. So with the bushings all lubed up, I'm just going to slot these over the actual sway bars. These do have a small gap in them to be able to slide them over. It's a bit more difficult with gloves on though. There we go, I'll get that mounted back up in the car, and then we'll move on to the end links. I'm just going to feed the sway bar back through over the top of the exhaust, where I should be able to hold it for a second. Okay, after a bit of back and forth, we've got the carriers back in with the sway bar installed. I'm going to leave it loose like this until we go get the actual end links in, and then we'll join it all up. So the white line sway bars I'm using are these extra heavy duty ones. It's currently set in the medium position with 2 spaces either side. White line also supply the hardware to connect it onto the sway bar. So let's get going. We'll be reusing the original hardware to connect it into the control arm. So I'll get this end link positioned. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to loosen off the shock strut, and that should widen out this part to allow me to get this end link in. Line this back up, and there we go. I'll tighten everything back down. So after quickly consulting the manual, this large washer will actually go on the outside of the sway link, with this inside one going on the side of the sway bar. Slap that on and tighten that bolt on. First one's on there. I'll go do the other side and then we'll start tightening everything up. Okay, so that's the rear sway bars swapped over. That's all tightened up. Sway end links are pretty good. The supplied bolts from White Line are 17, just for future reference. Everything else is looking good. I think it's time to move on to the front sway bar. Now with the front sway bar, we've got the sway bar here. The end links go up to the top of the shock tower there, but the actual sway bar comes all the way underneath this oil pan area and across. To make my life easier to get all that out, I'm going to remove this under tray here, as well as this metal subframe section. To remove the under tray, you've got a couple of push pins on the sides in each footwell, or wheel well, and then a couple of push pins and a couple of bolts along the front here. And just like that, the under tray comes off. This front side of the left side of the sway bar seems to interfere with this little clip here, so I'm going to undo this and just rotate it around briefly so we have better access. Sway bar up top here is sort of 17 mil. If that doesn't work as you rotate it, there is an Allen key in here to fasten everything up and back everything off. Because this is a relatively new car, that's come straight off with no issues. Blow hammer and just try and knock that through. That's coming out nice and freely. So that's the whole assembly free. As you can see, we don't have a lot of room to work with under here. So I am probably going to look at undoing the actual end links and getting the rest of it out. That was actually quite difficult. You've got to try and feed it through this small gap and across this bit on and across the J-pipe on this side. So we have the old one out. I'm going to try and slot the new one in. And just like that, I've got the new one sitting in there. I'm going to quickly get these side plates remounted, and then we can look at the end links. These end links are a bit different. These are the ones that come pre-packaged with the BC Racing coilover kit that I've just bought. The coilovers will be getting installed in part 2, but for now we've got the end links. Each one is individually wrapped and individually labelled. This is the left hand side. So I'll get these prepped up and onto the car. So we've got the sway bar temporarily installed with the sway link on this side. I'll go over and do the sway link on the other side, and then we'll get everything tightened up again. And there we go. End links are all in. These end links are actually designed for a slightly lowered car. So once we get the BC coilovers in, we'll actually be right in the ballpark. I'll now go back through and reinstall this heat shielding and this metal plate. I'm debating whether I'm going to reinstall the plastic shielding just yet, as there's much more work to go on underneath here, including a new diverter valve and hopefully some power mods in the near future. Unfortunately, the amount of footage you just saw was the best I could do with the edit, as they had lots of music playing in there today and I couldn't quite beat the copyrights and everything. So hopefully what you've just seen is enough to help you through getting the sway bars done on your VB WRX. But otherwise I'll try and put some more descriptive stuff down in the description, or even do another video altogether. So it's the next day. Drove the car home fine last night. Got home and just double checked everything, tightened anything up that I needed to, as you're supposed to fully tighten everything with a sway bar under pressure. Just heading off to the shops now, so I'll give it a quick test run. You can come along for the trip. So that last roundabout is I take it at quite a high speed, around 60k an hour in the 70 zone. It's got quite good visibility, which means I can see any traffic coming. As for the handling on it, it's off camber as you go into it, off camber and downhill, which makes it a fun handling test. But in this instance, the car, just the back end especially, now that I've upgraded that rear sway bar, is much grippier, and I felt like I had much more control of the car coming out of the roundabout. So I'm happy with the way the sway bars have gone, even though they were a bit of a difficulty to install, but they do seem to be handling quite well. I'm may change the setting on the fronts as it feels a little soft at the moment, and I've changed it to the other setting. But I'll do that when I come to do the coilovers, which will be the next video. So if you wish to continue on watching this series, I'll be doing the coilovers next. Wheels will probably be not far after that, and then I've got a few other bits and pieces for the suspension to come from there. So stay tuned for part 2, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you are so you can follow along on this journey. Cheers guys, and that's it from me on this one.